one shot at a time.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you follow the Canadian Tour, if you follow the 4Me Tour over the past year with everything COVID had dealt us, you're going to recognize the gentleman we have on the podcast today. Two-time winner on the Mackenzie Tour this past year, as well as Player of the Year. Callum, appreciate you joining us, man. Callum Davison from Canada, but spends a lot of time in the Palm Springs area, so we hear. So excited to have you on the show and excited to hear your story of what all's transpired over the last year or so.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Luckily I get to spend some time in Palm Springs, get out of the bad weather. Definitely is helpful. Trying to play professional golf and follow the dream.
For sure. I mean, you said even jumping around from Palm Springs to Hawaii and back to Palm Springs. You're definitely living the good life as far as finding the warm weather to play some golf in.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to get to travel and get to go to pretty cool places around the world, really. Privileged for that.
No, that's awesome. And I think the traveling portion is what really led us to reach out to you in the first place. The one post you had earlier this year via Instagram was kind of just talking about all the miles you traveled and the places you went, and it even had an RV. So I got to ask off the bat, was that your home on wheels throughout the whole year?
Yeah, it started I'd like to say early June and went all the way till early October, I think the first week of October. So that was kind of where we mostly just drove in it and used it as a little base. But we did stay in some hotels during tournament weeks, and then off weeks we would stay in it.
Is there any particular decision as to the RV compared to maybe flying? Is it COVID related or possibly even costs?
Yeah, costs, cut down on costs a little bit. And then obviously with COVID and everything, it just made it easier. Wasn't sure what was going on. So coming from Canada, early June, it was we still had a bunch of lockdowns and whatnot. So it was just easier to drive and because of how the tournaments lined up, you could kind of make it work. A lot of driving, but it was reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, talk to us through that too, because I think a lot of folks maybe either missed it if they were kind of on the outside looking in, or just didn't maybe even really understand what the 4Me Tour was all about, which it looks like you played in a good bit. How did that tour pop up to you guys that were, used to playing in the Mackenzie Tour, and how did you really get involved to play in a lot of their events?
Yeah, so basically they reached out, basically told us that the Mackenzie Tour was uncertain what was going on in Canada and the border restrictions for the American and international players. So they decided to hold 8 events as the Forum Tour, and it was played mostly East Coast. And so, that was basically the way to get onto the Corn Ferry this year. They provided the opportunity to be able to do that. And then the Mackenzie Tour on the other side posted their schedule, I would like to say mid-June, it was so late. That's when the tour starts. So a lot of players, and Canada Mackenzie Tour this year didn't have any Corn Ferry spots. So that kind of made it not as desirable to go play up there. You kind of had an option to do both, and they overlapped a little bit, but yeah.
Well, it's awesome that you were able to play both, and I think it speaks to a lot of the drive and passion you have to make it out there and play on tour. Where did that drive and passion come from? I know you said you grew up in Canada, and we'll get into the exciting grip choice that you use as well. But where did that passion come from growing up? Did you always have a knack for just wanting to go play professionally?
Yeah. So I started out, I'm from Canada, so you got to play hockey. So my dad played semi-professional hockey. That's kind of, he ended up being a banker, and he would play with his clients and whatnot. So he started getting into golf later on in life. And I have a brother 6 years older than me, played for Pepperdine, University of Pepperdine on the golf team. So that growing up always kind of, they were always at the golf course, so I wanted to join them kind of thing. Mind you, we all played hockey, and that's that was my main sport until I think I maybe 12 or 13. But yeah, it was, go to the golf course to hang out with your brother and dad. So that's kind of how it came about.
That's awesome. It's got some grassroots in it, Dante. I know as you and I learned the game with our dads, and we just kind of always wanted to be tagging along and seeing if we could hit it by him. I know as our dads have kind of aged a little bit, we can kind of always hit it by him now. But as a kid, that was always the goal, right? Let's go hit it by dad. So it's really cool to hear there's some grassroots in that.
Absolutely.
Man, and then, as you talk about your older brother playing at Pepperdine, you chose to go a little bit different of a route and kind of oversee the college route and play your own path. What was the decision behind really just kind of forming your own path within the game?
It was more, huge. I was never going to go to university for 4 years. That wasn't really the path I wanted to do. I knew I was going to turn professional. It was just a matter of time. And I decided after I got pretty much full status on the Euro Pro Tour at the age of 17, I decided over in Europe and the UK, feeder onto the Challenge Tour. So kind of like the Mackenzie Tour, but in Europe. Decided that, why go to university for a year or two, even 3? Like, you're not going to get an education at the end of the day. So let's just skip that process and learn on, playing professional golf. There's no better way of learning. So that was, it was a very interesting summer. That's definitely a lot of low points. A lot of people told me, professional golf is a lot tougher than obviously junior and amateur golf. And man, you learn really quick. I mean, you either get better or you quit. So,
I was gonna say, what a way to cut your teeth.
Yeah. So there's a lot of missed cuts that summer. Made a couple, and then you just learn and you play with players that have experience. Played a lot of players that played on the Walker Cup over there and whatnot, and older guys that had a career. And you learn from them and you manage yourself better and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's it's always interesting to me, and I don't think we usually get a lot of answers in this side of things. But how did the European side of golf really differ from what you're seeing on the American side, or even from the Mackenzie Tour, up in Canada?
Yeah, the golf's a little bit different. It was mostly played in England and a little bit in Scotland and Ireland. The travel for one, over there was more driving, I guess. But the year after that, I ended up playing on the Alps Tour, which was flying everywhere. So that kind of learned schedule part of things, and flying and whatnot to different countries every week. But just the golf, the change of grasses and over there, it gets very windy. So just learning how to play in that really is huge. And different green speeds and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's always talked about, I think, which is crazy, of just the kind of vast difference of course style over there and how to play and how to hit shots. As you came back over to the Mackenzie Tour and had a pretty successful summer this past year, leading into really the end of this summer, like you said, the late season with the Mackenzie Tour due to all the protocols and stuff. Did you come straight back over from Europe to the tour and kind of get on your hot streak?
Yeah. So that was, so basically I played in 2018 on the Euro Pro, 2019 on the Alps Tour, which is another feeder similar. And then 2020 hit with COVID. So Mackenzie Tour was only 4 events. Wasn't really the Mackenzie Tour. It was kind of more just put on something for Canadians kind of thing. And then, then last year, 2020. So last year, so basically I played on the Forum Tour the first half of the season. I won Q School, so I didn't have to worry about shuffles or anything on the Forum Tour. Played 5 events, struggled with, I had a back injury and kind of, I had a long driver. It was 47 inches. And I couldn't keep it in the fairway basically. So, kind of rethought things, went down to a 46-inch driver. And then from there, I took a week or 2 off and decided, I wasn't having very good success on the Forum Tour. So thought I'd go up to PEI was the first event up on the Mackenzie Tour, and kind of just reset the season, just because of the points and everything kind of reset. And I knew there was some aspect. I knew I couldn't get to the Corn Ferry, but I could keep my card, and I knew there was a PGA Tour spot up for a grab. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, which I think is kind of the crazy behind the scenes aspect that a lot of people never see, is kind of weighing where you want to play based on points, based on exemptions, based on, a number of things that people really don't see, that all players like yourself really have to pay attention to and put into matter when it's like, all right, well, if I play this tournament, and I miss out on the tournament over here at the same week or the same time, I can miss out on so many points. Like, what is that really like to have to kind of volley and choosing where to play from week in to week out?
Yeah, so I kind of had that situation. End of season, there was Corn Ferry Q School going on, and so basically I either had to choose to play in a Mackenzie Tour event, one of the last ones, or go to the first stage. And I decided to not do it just because if I missed that event and someone jumped ahead of me or whatever, it would put more, pressure on me to have to win or whatever. So it kind of, you have to choose, you pick and choose. At the end of the day, I did the right decision, but at the same time, I could be on the Corn Ferry, if you killed it in Q School. So it just, it's tough. You just got to pick and choose and live with it.
Yeah. And as more tours start to pop up too, do you think that decision just continues to get harder as far as where to travel to and play?
Yeah, because then, I've always gone to European Q School, and it hasn't been going for the last 2 years. But so you have that, and then you have Asian Tour, you have the Australian Tour. So there's so many different tours, Sunshine Tours. So you got to just figure out where. I think each player your game kind of sets up for different tours, if that makes sense. So in Asia, it's very tight off the tee and whatnot. So maybe it's someone that hits it really straight, maybe not as long, might, like Asia or whatever. But you got to look at the end goal too. Some don't lead to the PGA Tour. Some just lead to making decent money and doing it for the rest of your life, but you don't get to really where you want at the end of the day. So.
And I imagine like guys like yourself and other really high end players, that the goal is to play full time on the PGA Tour. That's, the bread and butter. You want that kind of paycheck to play for. When you look at, the season you just had and 2 wins and getting that PGA Tour start, obviously it's just the start of where you want to go. Are you still driving the RV from place to place? Is that something that's still in the schedule?
No, we ended up selling it. It just too many RV problems. It was a mess. It seemed like if anything could go wrong, it would, and it just it was a lot. And definitely gonna fly.
Yeah, when you're putting that up, day job here is transportation. So when you're putting that amount of miles onto a vehicle, it's bound to break down here and there. And I know your pain. I see it on my end.
Yeah. Even if it panned out, at the end of the day, you lose too many days, like from driving from Seattle all the way to Georgia. It's just, you got to stop, you got to practice. It's just, it's too much. If your schedule is just going week to week, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
It's got to be tough and grueling on kind of the mental aspect and the physical aspect when, like you said, you're going from coast to coast, when it's taken, 3 to 4, maybe even 5 days to get to one location, let alone you're traveling 3 different time zones, and then you just got to get out, basically, cart to tee and.
It doesn't allow you to, prepare for some of the events. Like I had one from PI to Saskatchewan. I think it was a full 2-day drive. And then you get there and you have a day to practice and play the golf course. And then the next day you're playing again. It's like you never had a break where if you flew, you'd have a day break or whatever. So it's tough.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like we really learned this year too. We went out, came back on a red eye from Palm Springs to the East Coast, and we lost so much time. The next day, Dante, you and I spent the whole day like in sweatpants and a t-shirt, just lounging around because we were gassed. And I can only imagine switching time zones like that in a car, nonetheless, or an RV, and then having to get up and go play a tournament worth your career. That gets grueling.
Crazy as far as the fact that we couldn't get out of East Coast time when we were out on the West Coast, and as soon as we got back, it all hit us at once. And I'm pretty sure, like Dalton said, him and I basically passed out over the weekend. We took a red eye. It just like totally destroyed us. But I mean, like you said, I'm complaining about 2 days rest here, and I shouldn't be when you're getting out of the trunk and you're walking to the tee, and you got to like power through that.
Yeah, I mean, it did have some positives though in the RV. You got to see some neat places. I mean, you get to drive across the country. When else are you going to really do that? And it allowed me to play some really cool golf courses. So it had some benefits, but the negatives outweighed the benefits. So
now, was there a full team on that RV, or was it pretty lightweight traveling, or how did you travel with a team? Do you travel with a team? What does it look like as you travel across the country?
It was actually my mom and dad. They thought my mom didn't stay the whole trip when my dad was there. He was my caddy. He caddied every single event besides the last event. He's been my caddy since I turned pro, and we've had our ups and downs, but we're still staying strong. So so it was just us three, and so a really cool experience, to hang out with my parents on the trip while I'm doing what I love to do. And so it was neat that way.
Yeah, that's I tell you, that's life changing, especially if you can come out on the other side and not have animosity towards one another once you're traveling like that. I know every good father-son duo knows what a good fight here or there can do. But speaking of your father and the relationship you have with him, did he influence that kind of cross-handed action you got going on, or where did that come from?
Oh, I picked it up when I was like 3 or 4 golf club, and it felt natural to me. And then by the time I got older and older, it was, they tried to change me. I was pretty stubborn about it. I'm good. And then I got all the way till when I was 12, and I started playing some tournaments when I was about 10 or whatever. And 12, I won provincials. We have this thing called the BC Bantams, and every province has it. And it's kind of provincials for 14 and under. And I won it when I was 12, and it was kind of cool, and it kind of ensured me that maybe I can actually play like this. It kind of went from there, and I got a golf coach at the age of 14. I saw him for 2 years. Eventually, he tried to change me, and I wasn't having it. So that actually has a big part of me in Palm Springs. I have a great golf coach here. I have a relationship with him for the last about 6 years. So he's been great, Chris Walkie. So that's kind of the way it's become my swing. So
that's awesome. It's just crazy cool to hear. I mean, we hear it time and time again on the wrong side of history of like, well, I tried to change, or even watch pros change, right? Like not from a drastic cross-handed grip, but you watch pros change and then they kind of they take their fall from greatness. And just watching a swing here on your Instagram that really, gets your hands in such an awesome spot up top. Like if you would just watch it real quick, you can't even tell you're cross-handed. It's a great spot up top to really see the club set in. So, man, it's just a fun swing to watch. And then when you really slow it down, you're like, wait a minute, he's cross-handed. I'll be dang. So it's really cool to watch.
Yeah, thanks. When I was like younger, before I had my first coach, and really this coach that I'm with now has really kind of cleaned it up over time. But before, it was just a mess. Like if I showed you a video, you'd be like, there's no way you could play golf like that. But around. So, he's cleaned it up, and it now visually looks a lot more appealing, and it's more consistent. And so that's where the last 6 years for me has been just trying to become more consistent day to day, and just keep on working on the tendencies that I have, and yeah.
So we've got one of our own here. I won't mention names, Dante, but we've got one of our own working through a swing change right now. And if you had to give some advice to him, as you just said, you went from something that was kind of really a mess to something that's really, pleasing to the eye and pleasing to your scorecard too. What's one piece of advice you could give him as he kind of battles this swing change?
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, that's for sure. A lot of hard work, a lot of hours on the range. But I feel like the biggest key is to be able to trust the person you're working with. If you can't do that, it's just not going to work out. I kind of figured that out the hard way, my first coach. But I've kind of, over time, the last 6 years, there's been periods of time where like, oh, you want me to change that? Like, there's no way. But, he has an idea in his head where he wants to get me at the end of the day. And you just gotta believe that he's doing the best for you, and just work on it and work hard and see where it goes.
I hear you. I mean, it's crazy because obviously I'm so inside, and they basically swoop it back around, and yeah, obviously we're trying to reverse that. And it's I've had friends, I've had other coaches, I've had like anybody you can think of sitting there, YouTube, whatever, trying to like fix it. And I think, Dalton and I were out on the range. I don't know if you've seen any of our clips on Instagram, but, another fellow player and friend of ours, Trent Feltz, too, they just basically were like, dude, we're going to make like the next 20, 30 minutes and we're just going to work on like this one move. And I was like, this can't work. I was like, trust me, as soon as I get behind a ball, it's dead. And they're like, no, just go with it. And just the one little simple move for now is insane. And I mean, unfortunately, it's been pretty cold and wet and snowy, so I've just been mirror imaging that in my room just to like that's pretty much. I really can't get to a range right now, but it's wild. Like you're saying, you just put the time in and just trust it. And
yeah, for sure. And you don't even need to be at a range, really. If you're working on something major, like you just do it in your room. You can do it in the morning, afternoon, at night, even at work, lunch break.
I mean, I cut a 3-iron down to like this big just so I wouldn't hit any lights or break anything, just so I can at least see the club face.
What a true golfer.
I was going to say, tell me you're an addict without telling me you're an addict. I love it. No, that's awesome, man. It's something that's a true testament to hard work. Any swing change is, and especially to get to the level you've gotten with what you've got. It's a testament to a lot of hard work. So excited to watch the next year. As we talk about the next year, you've got a PGA Tour start. You've had a great success on the Mackenzie Tour. What's the next 6 to 10 months look like for you? What's on the schedule?
Yeah, so I go to Louisiana to play 2 Corn Ferry Mondays, and then after that, just kind of preparing, might do some mini tour stuff, but just preparing for the first event of the Mackenzie Tour. I think it's going to be roughly mid to late May. So I'll play the full schedule, have full stats on that. Don't have to worry about any shuffles or whatever. So we'll play on that, and then I have my I get to play in the Canadian Open, so that's mid to early June. That's kind of the schedule, and then I'll try to do Corn Ferry Q School this year, hopefully as long as everything coordinates well, and then European Q School.
Awesome, man. A lot of exciting things ahead. Excited to watch you play, and excited to see the full status. I imagine that's a breath of fresh air having full status in Mackenzie this year.
Yeah, last year I was kind of lucky. I won Q School, so that gave me the same thing, and so it's huge. I mean, you can plan your schedule instead of going week by week, and if you miss a cut, you don't know where you stand. So, it frees me up, and
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up for this evening, where can people follow along on your journey, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or whatever? Where can people follow along to watch it unfold this year?
Yeah, Instagram's the best place. It's Callum D4. It's kind of the only social media I have. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's all you need, right? Just enough to become famous.
I feel like Twitter gets you in trouble. So,
amen to that.
I can't have a Twitter profile, that's for sure.
For sure. Well, awesome, guys. Go give him a follow. He posts some incredible swing videos, as well as kind of just following his journey on the Mackenzie Tour this year, as well as a couple attempts at some Q School. So, Callum, appreciate the time, man. Thanks for taking it out of your evening to join us.
Thank you. Much appreciated.